So, today we're headed to Budapest, a city right at the heart of this huge fight for the future of freedom in Europe. It's a really powerful story about repressive laws, fierce resistance, and a community's incredible courage. Yeah, those are actual words shouted at marchers on the streets of Budapest. It's this, constant, stark reminder of the hostility that Hungary's LGBTQ plus community is facing every single day. But, and this is the important part, this isn't just a story about oppression. It's a story of defiance. Because on those very same streets, something really powerful was bubbling up. A community deciding it wasn't gonna be silent anymore. Okay, let's really dive into this. To get what this fight is all about, we've got to meet the people who are right in the middle of it all, the ones living through this cultural battle every single day. So we're going to follow the stories of a few people who are caught right in the middle of this. First up, there's Bella, a queer photographer of Romani heritage who came back to Hungary to document what was happening. We'll also hear from Norby, who's an NGO volunteer in Budapest, and from Zu and Enik, a couple just trying to build a quiet life for themselves out in the countryside. Now, these personal stories, they don't just happen out of nowhere, right? They're unfolding against a very specific political backdrop. To really understand their fight, you have to understand the government's agenda. For over a decade, it's been using this idea of traditional values as a political weapon, really, to tighten its grip on power and decide who is and who isn't a true Hungarian. And when you look at the timeline here, you can see a really clear pattern emerging. This wasn't random, it was a strategy. It all kicks off back in 2010 when the Fidesz party comes to power. From there, you see a new constitution that bans same-sex marriage, then the infamous Child Protection Act, and eventually even restrictions on the basic right to assemble. Each step is part of this systematic squeeze on civil society. And believe me, these laws have real, deeply personal consequences. Just take Bella's story. He was a successful journalist, a news anchor on Hungarian state TV, but in his own words, "I was a TV host openly gay and Romani. My bosses tried to humiliate me at work. I had no choice but to quit." I mean, this hostile atmosphere literally cost him his career and in the end pushed him to leave his own country. So what exactly is this Child Protection Act we keep hearing about? Well, basically, it's a 2021 law that slaps a ban on any mention or positive portrayal of LGBTQ plus folks in media, in advertising, in school programs, pretty much anywhere someone under 18 might see it. Critics call it what it is, a state-sponsored censorship law designed to make an entire community invisible. And here's a perfect example of the chilling effect this has on the ground. Norby, the NGO volunteer we met, he used to run these great workshops on identity in schools. But as soon as this law passed, he had to pull the plug. The risk to himself personally and to his whole organization just got to be too much. So you end up with this totally jarring, split-screen reality. On one side, you've got the government's official line pumping out this narrative about traditional values on state TV. And on the other, you have the actual lived experience. Norby getting called genetic garbage on the street just for wearing nail polish. Or Zu and Enik feeling terrified about moving to a small town just because of who they are as a couple. And you can really see how this whole climate is reflected across society. A 2023 survey found that less than a third of Hungarians think same-sex relationships should be accepted by society. That is one of the lowest rates of acceptance in the entire European Union. It just goes to show you how tough the social environment has become. So think about it. You've got the government, the law, and a big chunk of the public against you. What do you even do? Well, for a lot of people, the answer is to leave. A huge part of Hungary's queer community is seriously thinking about emigrating, just to find a place where they can be safe and accepted. But here's the thing, not everyone left. And what happened next? Well, it became a defining moment. Now, let's get into how the community decided to fight back against a government that seemed dead set on making them invisible. So the stage was set for this massive showdown. First, the government comes out and officially bans the 2025 Budapest Pride March. But then, in this incredible move, the mayor of Budapest says, "Nope, we're doing it anyway." The government shot back, warning that anyone who dared to show up could face fines up to 500 euros. So that was the big question hanging over the whole city, right? With a government ban hanging over their heads and the real threat of a hefty fine, were people actually going to show up? The answer? Oh yeah, 200,000 people. I mean, they just flooded the streets of Budapest in this massive, overwhelming wave of solidarity. And you can just feel the emotion of that day in what Norby said. He told us, "I was very nervous, but it was exactly that fear that made me realize that all of this is necessary." This was the moment people took all that fear and turned it straight into action. And look, this wasn't just a big crowd. We're talking about the largest pride demonstration in the entire 30-year history of the event in Budapest. It was a truly historic moment of defiance. And Bella's words, I think, really get to the heart of why it got so big. He saw people in the crowd who weren't even LGBTQ+, and he understood why they were there. As he put it, if we are not fighting for the sexual minority rights, maybe we are the next one. It clicked for people that this wasn't just about one community's rights. It was about the future of freedom for everyone in Hungary. Okay, so after this incredible moment, this huge act of resistance, what now? What does this all mean for a country where the future feels like it is completely on the line? For Norby and for thousands of other people there, that day was absolutely transformative. This crowd shows everyone what it's really like, he said. The world is much bigger. The government can't stop us from being ourselves. It was this powerful proof that they weren't alone and that they had a kind of power the state couldn't touch. The feeling was just electric. After years and years of being pushed into the shadows, a lot of people described it as a complete reset. It was a moment where it finally felt like the tide might be turning, a day when just regular people stood up together for what they knew was right. So a whole community found its voice, and it was louder and clearer than ever. But as the dust settles, that fundamental struggle for Hungary's soul, it's still going on. And the question that's left hanging is, in this fight, who really gets the final